All right, our regularly scheduled council meeting on November 4th is now in session. Would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Clark.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mulvey.
Here.
Councilmember Brinkman.
Here.
Councilmember Trujillo.
Here.
Councilmember Taylor.
Present.
Councilmember Cole.
Here.
And Councilmember Ostermiller.
Here. Would you all rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You all have the agenda in front of you. Are there any changes to the agenda? Then our agenda is approved as submitted. Minutes for the special meeting of October 14th.
I didn't bring them because I thought Phil might give us some new minutes tonight, but would you tell us what you're doing there, Phil? I still want to see some minutes.
Wendy, I'll take it. Phil Goodtees, Deputy City Manager. Tom had asked about the study session that we had on October 14th, the special meeting, where we had a presentation from one of the agenda items was from South Platte Park. The minutes from study sessions, if you haven't noticed, aren't as detailed. We don't put in every word in those minutes. We give a general background, and we have on the city webpage the video that's accessible to people, and they can actually click on that study session item and go to it and see it right there. We've been doing this now for a couple of months, and it's kind of helped Wendy not. First of all, she's not at the meeting, so she has to transcribe verbatim, and that takes a long amount of time. Now, if you guys are under a different impression, we need to talk about that, because we thought that going to the video on the web page, if people really want to see what happened, they can do that. But the minutes aren't verbatim. They're not in detail. Generally, it gives a background. Am I saying this correct, Wendy? Okay.
But I need to know what I said at that meeting, because I'm using it on a different thing.
Yeah.
And how am I going to find out?
Certainly, what I would suggest to any council person and any citizen, if they can't go to the web for any reason, we can burn a DVD of that meeting and give it to you.
I'll take one.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Do you want to get reflected in the minutes something that you said or something that was reported? Do you remember something specifically that you
Well,
want to
I
get
asked
in there?
questions on Cooley Lake and on ADA for the South Park Management Plan, but I don't remember how I worded it, and I don't know what they answer, if I got any answer. In the minutes that we received, it showed nothing. None of us asked anything.
Would you like to delay the acceptance of this until our next regular meeting and try and look at that?
I'd like, if I get my DVD, I'll do that, and then I'll put it down.
All right. Then I suggest, if there's any objection on council, that we delay the acceptance of the October 14th minutes until our next regular meeting.
Well, wait a minute. So does this mean that Councilmember Mulvey will look at the DVD and say, before next meeting, I'd like this included?
I think that what he ought to do is get together with Wendy with a list of what you said and what the responses were. Have Wendy incorporate those into a new version of the minutes and have them sent out to us in the packet before the meeting.
Okay. And if some of us already tonight have a couple of requests?
Let's go through those, because I actually have a couple also.
Okay.
So, do you want to?
Yes, if that's all right. And I'll give Wendy my copy too, which has some, minor little things. Not substantive, just a couple, but they are, I think, important. Anyway, but with this, on page 2, between line 48 and 50, I'd like to have inserted a generalization. There was extensive discussion of whether to open Cooley Lake to the public full-time for part of the year or all of the year, or to keep access limited the way it is. That then is the generalization, which doesn't, I think, at all preclude somebody then wanting to have more specifics in there. But I think the generalization needs to be there. Then the motion itself, I don't think is correct. I did listen to the streaming video. It was moved by Mayor Clark and seconded by Councilmember Trujillo to have, then strike most of the rest of that line and substitute South Suburban Parks and Recreation staff provide information on environmental and cost impacts on, so that's how that line would read, and then stay the same down to line 55, and then delete after all. So we would delete the wildlife impacts and the cost impacts. Because the motion's a little tripping on itself the way it's worded here.
Well, I agree with the first part because it was to prepare information, not to have a joint meeting. However, I think part of that was specifically asking for information on the impact of the wildlife and the cost associated there with
but
dollars.
I did put it in. It's just where it is in the current wording is confusing.
But I think this is the way the motion ended up, was the last lines 55 and 56 is exactly the way the motion was made by the mayor, I believe.
Well, then that motion's going to have to get changed a little bit. It was a pretty convoluted statement, I think.
On this issue, I would suggest that you get together with Wendy, and you propose to Wendy how you want it to read. That'll come back to us in our packet along with Tom's changes, and we can then either accept that or modify that as appropriate.
Okay, I'll try to do that. Then I need to ask City Manager Woods a question about line 82. I thought you said, Jim, that the grant's completed in July 2009, but...
Yes, ma'am. That's true.
Okay. So we could make that correction. And I would like myself to have an extensive part of the meeting, pretty verbatim, at line 112. The article is out of perspective, and it starts around minute 7 in that section of the video. And I'd like to have that whole remaining part of that section be in the minutes, because it was really important information that I think we should have written record of. The way
I suggest you get together with Wendy once again and just make sure that whatever's put in here actually reflects what happened at the meeting.
Well, I was asking her to listen. It's pretty tricky to listen and stop and start and write and everything. Anyway, thank you. I'll get together.
Any other corrections for October 14th? All righty, then those will come back to us. And next, okay. October 21st. Any corrections? Tom?
On page 19, line 853, I'd like the correct title of that festival. I got to find it now. Harvest Festival. It just says festival, and we need the word harvest right above it, right in front of it. That's all I got.
Okay.
I have one on page 17, line 759. I think that Centennial, I think that should be Columbine Valley.
I think it was. It's, well, I guess,
Because Cooley's in, or the
right.
Normandy Gulch thing was in
Can
Columbine.
we check that? Thank you.
It's not anywhere near Centennial.
Because we were also talking about the reservoir a little bit when Centennial
Yeah,
came
I
in.
mean, which is owned by Centennial Water and Sand.
Yeah,
So maybe we ought to look and check and see what Cecily was referring to there.
yeah. Because I mean, I can see potentially referring to either one of those two. Anything else? Jim, you had something?
I was just going to mention, I think that for this October 21st meeting, Joe was absent, and it needs to reflect that, and then
All of those, I'm sorry, I was going to say that after the
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I put him as a no vote, but I didn't put him under the absent.
right.
Yeah.
And
And I also have one other change on, sorry, I was outside all day and I didn't mark this. It was one of the motions that failed, and I wrote that it passed, and the motion carried. It should have said motion failed.
Okay,
And I changed it on my set of minutes.
okay. Other changes? I have a couple.
I have several.
Okay.
The minor ones I'll give to you, but I think I've screened these out for more major ones. Page 3. Major, of course. Page 3, line 98. My name needs to have a C there. Line 134 on page 3. Funding should be fundraising opportunities. Page 5. Lines 218 to 220. On line 218, that line, Brinkman to close the public hearing, et cetera, et cetera. Then 221 and 222, the sentence should end with Slaughterhouse Gulch property because the approved part's already in an earlier part of the motion there. Page 10. Let's see if I see a similar issue with the approved piece in there twice. Line 452 to close the public hearing and approve. And then 453, 54, take out be approved. Page 12, 528, benefit to the developer because of the surrounding area. 533 and 34. At the end of 533, insert, and indeed some of the residents themselves may use them for years. And 534, the rest of that sentence deleted. She said she believes that half of the rate of the multi-residential units is appropriate. A percentage tied to that would raise automatically with increases. I did listen to the streaming video quite a few times to try to hear what I said and how I said it and how other people said things so that we could be clear. I'm looking, make sure I'm just calling attention to things that have substantive changes. On page 14, line 640 and 41, I'm not quite sure what Cole residential dash is in there for, so I couldn't hear that on the video that there was something that was lost there. But the mayor did say in that section, so I want this added, although if doing that slows us down for the assisted living, let's split that out and do it in 2 different deals. I think that's the way the mayor said that. I think that was an important issue. Looking to see if there's anything else critical. Nothing else of substance, thank you.
Okay.
Mayor and council, I have no objection to people who want to change the minutes to reflect what is being said. I do object, though, when you try to change what was stated in a motion. For the most part, these motions are read from the printed document that is given to us, and they're read verbatim from what is there. And I don't think it's proper to go back and try to change what was said when a council person is reading verbatim from the ordinance for asking for approval. I just think that's not right to do. It may not be right structurally, grammatically correct, but that's the way it is said, and that's the way I think it should remain. I don't think we should be changing anything that's said in a motion.
I actually concur. The minutes need to reflect what actually was moved, what was actually said, rather than what it should be. So when we make these changes, we have to make sure that whatever changes we're making actually reflects what happens at the meeting.
I thought I listened carefully to what was said, and I may have missed something.
Okay. This is just a
well,
general.
I know, but I think in part what happens is that something's already typed gets pasted in, and that may confound that. If that's not happening, then I think each of us needs to be more careful in the way we word our motions.
Alrighty, I have a change on page 9, line 379, where it starts "the will." I think it needs to say "the zoning" or "the change."
Or he.
Or "he will." Yeah, either one. Then on page 11, I think what we have is the 2 items, D and C, we switched around. And so I think what we need to take is lines 474 through 505. That whole section goes to line 565. And then 566, am I going too fast? Yeah, 566 through 593 goes back to the other one. Because we've got the motion and the discussion that's separate from the presentation that's separate from that. And that's probably my fault for moving that stuff around at the beginning of the meeting. I apologize. And then on 628.5, if we can insert a line that says, please, Mr. Woods asked for direction on bringing back an ordinance for reduced open space fee for assisted living. 628.5.
Okay.
Sure. Mr. Woods asked for direction on bringing back an ordinance for a reduced open space fee for assisted living. And I think that's it. And both of those were very long meetings. They were long minutes. If there's no more changes,
I just want to confirm, Wendy, what I think the motion you were looking for is on page 12 with the yeas and nays.
Yes.
oh, the one for the, where it failed or, okay. All right, then the October 21st will be approved with the changes. The October 14th will come back to us. Charlie, you were right.
Could I request that we get a copy of the change things? We don't always, and that's all right, but we'd made so many changes here. If
Yeah, could
that's
you put
okay.
another one on the 21st in our packets next time? And write on it for me, don't pay attention, we've already approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, introduction of new city employees.
Yes, council, one new employee tonight, a new worker in our streets department, Tyson Erickson. Tyson, if you stand, Tyson grew up right next door here in Inglewood. His family went to school there, and for a number of years was in business with his dad, had a small construction business and did a lot of work. His dad decided he wanted to retire and kick back a little bit, so Tyson has joined our streets department, and as you know, that's a very busy department, and especially if and when the snow starts flying. So we're happy to introduce Tyson to you, a new member of our streets department.
Welcome, Tyson. It's good to have you here. And you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting. It may go a while. All right. Now we have, I'm sorry, is that the only employee?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Now we have guest appearance, Corey McCullough. Am I saying that right? Come on down, please. This evening, the Littleton City Council is pleased to recognize Corey McCullough as a guest citizen for the assistance he provided to the Littleton Police Department in the search for a man with 2 felony warrants. Police Chief Heather Coogan will also present him with the Littleton Police Department Citizens Appreciation Award. On April 8th of this year, police officer Jim Fountain was dispatched to the King Superstore at 100 West Littleton Broadway. Security officers at the store had spotted a man who was known to be wanted on warrants for larceny with a $65,000 bond and also known to carry a gun. While Officer Fountain was en route, King Super Security notified dispatch that the man had left the store and boarded an RTD bus headed south on Broadway. The man exited the bus at Euclid Avenue. Officer Fountain spotted the man and attempted to arrest him, but he took off running and a foot chase ensued. The suspect ran behind the buildings at Broadway and Euclid, along the Highline Canal Trail, and then jumped a fence into a backyard with Officer Fountain in pursuit. Officer Fountain lost sight of the suspect, and at that time, McCullough pulled up and asked if he could be of assistance. This is great. McCullough drove Officer Fountain around the neighborhood for about 25 minutes while Arapahoe County's K-9 unit responded. Witnesses later reported that the suspect was at the Broadwood Shopping Center where he got into a car and left the scene. Although he remains at large, a backpack he was carrying was recovered, and inside, a video game system and a pair of bolt cutters was discovered. The Littleton City Council and Littleton Police Department extend their sincere appreciation to Corey McCullough for the assistance he provided to Officer Fountain in the search for a wanted criminal. Even though the suspect has yet to be apprehended, the Littleton Police Department is grateful that Corey McCullough took the time to stop and offer his help. This is great. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'd just like to give this to you and thank you, and to say to council and to Corey and everyone that we depend on the security guards at that King Supers and all the King Supers to help us, and they always go out of their way. So we really do appreciate it.
I was just driving.
I know, but you were still there and you offered to help as a citizen.
Thank you.
So,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
All right, that brings us to unscheduled public appearances, which is a time that any citizen can come down and express an opinion or ask questions regarding city services or council policies or other matters of community concern that are not part of the scheduled agenda. I'd also like to remind everybody that you're welcome to call your council person at any time if you have any questions or issues also. So if anybody wants to come down, now would be the time. Okay, great. That takes us to the consent agenda. The only item on the consent agenda is an ordinance on first reading, amending the city code, section 6515, pertaining to the disposition of intangible property. Could you read that by title, unless I just did?
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, amending City Code Section 6-5-15 pertaining to the disposition of intangible property.
And the intent of this is to change the amount of time that we wait after we've issued a check. Currently, we wait for 5 years until we declare the item to be basically lost and take the money back. This is proposing to change that to 6 months. Second reading and public hearing will be on November 18th. Is there a motion for the consent agenda? John?
You want a motion? A motion?
Please.
I move consent agenda item 7A be approved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Council ready to vote?
Any discussion?
I'm sorry. Discussion?
Discussion time, right?
Uh-huh.
After the second?
Sure.
I would just like to make an amendment change here. Under B, on the second page there,
Okay.
I think, we've been doing this for 5 years, and then to suddenly bring it down to 6 months, I think that's too short of a timetable. I'd like to make a motion that we increase that to 1 year instead of just 6 months.
Okay, it's been moved to amend the proposed ordinance on first reading, item B, and strike out the 5 years, strike out the 6 months, and change that to 1 year. Is there a second? I'll second that. Okay. The motion is to amend the proposed ordinance on first reading, changing the duration from 6 months to 1 year. Any discussion on the amendment?
Yes.
Jim?
I'd like to argue against the amendment. I think one of the purposes of going to 6 months, it keeps us in a lot of cases from having to have an auditor track that for 1 more year. Not only does our finance department have to keep track of it, but the auditors then spend their time tracking and verifying all of this. I think keeping it at 6 months will remove a lot of the work that has to be done to prepare for the audit and also for the auditor to do. And I'd like to see it be kept at 6 months.
Okay. Further discussion?
Can I ask Finance Department
A question? Sure. Mr. Furman, our Director of Finance.
Thank you.
So how do you feel about the 6 months versus a year? Do you think the 6 months gives you enough time to follow up with people?
6 months, we believe 6 months would be enough time to follow up with people. We're comfortable with that time frame.
And is there anything in your experience here or elsewhere that would suggest that the recipients of checks should have more time or would need more time?
No, I believe that they should have, 6 months would be ample time for them to be able to cash the check, and that would provide us with ample time also to follow up on uncashed checks and bad addresses and so forth. That would be enough time for us to research that. So I think 6 months is enough time.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, the motion is to amend the proposed ordinance changing the duration called out in section B from 6 months to 1 year. A yes vote would make the change, a no vote would keep it the same. Council ready to vote?
The vote is 2 in favor with Councilwoman Cole, Councilman Taylor, Councilman Mulvey, Councilman Ostermiller, and Councilwoman Brinkman voting no. The motion's defeated.
Okay, now we're back to the main motion, which is the first reading on the proposed ordinance. Any discussion on that? Council ready to vote?
Vote is 7 in favor. The motion's approved.
Okay. That takes us to item 12A, which is a resolution approving the Aspen Grove Business Improvement District's 2009 operating plan and budget. Would you read that by title, please?
This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, approving the 2009 operating plan and budget for the Aspen Grove Business Improvement District.
Presentation?
Mayor, this, as explained in the backup documents, is a requirement that the Business Improvement District come to the council for final approval of its Business Improvement District budget. The budget is attached in Exhibit 1, and Tim Flynn from the representing Aspen Grove Business Improvement District is here if council has any questions.
Any questions, council? Okay, motion?
Yeah, I move that the resolution approving the Aspen Grove Business Improvement District 2009 operating plan and budget be approved, and the council president be authorized to affix his signature thereto.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution approving the Aspen Grove Business Improvement District. Any discussion?
I do have a question. Could have asked this before the motion. I'm curious how page 2 of the plan affects the plan in motion. Specifically in Article 4, that the last 3 lines of that article ending with subject to whatever changes may be necessary as a result of final certification, etc. So are any changes at that point going to require additional action from us?
Mr. Flynn, name and address, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Tim Flynn. I'm the attorney for the Aspen Grove Business Improvement District. The reason that's in there is at the present time we don't have the final assessed valuations from Arapahoe County. And no, it will not require us to come back unless there was some major change, which I don't anticipate occurring. The mill levy has been the same for about the last 4 years, 5 years, so I don't anticipate much change at all.
So does our attorney, who sees whatever it is that gets changed so that we're confident it doesn't need to come back to us?
Well, we're required under the local government budget law to go through the standard process of adopting a budget every year, just like every other entity of local government. We present it to you for preliminary approval. So it'll be advertised. We'll adopt it at a public meeting, and I'd be glad to provide you with a copy of the final budget as adopted. And if there were any substantial changes of any kind, I'd be glad to bring that to your attention. But actually, we wouldn't make any substantial changes without first coming back to get your approval.
Okay.
So if there was, the mill levy or the assessed valuation has dropped slightly this year, but we're still not raising the mill levy. It would take a major change in the assessed valuation for us to really affect this budget in any material way.
Okay.
I think what the issue is on page 3 they have projected revenues, just like we project the revenues on our city budget. Those projected revenues are based on an assumption of what the mill levy is. The assessed valuation, may change slightly, which means that their actual revenue may come in slightly different than what the budgeted or projected revenue.
That's absolutely correct. And in the last couple of years, there's been no change, but if it changes, it'll affect the dollar value of those revenues by just $10, $15,
Okay.
not significant.
So what it would change would be the ending funds that are available at
That's
the
right.
end of the year potentially.
Thank you.
Okay. Further questions or discussion? Thank you, sir. Council ready to vote?
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion's approved.
Thank you, sir. That brings us to reports, Mr. City Manager.
One quick item, Council. 2 weeks ago, I advised you that we had kicked off a concentrated code enforcement program up in the northeast neighborhoods. And we started with 4 properties that were in foreclosure. Just wanted to report to you, to date, the code enforcement team has completely inspected 2 of those buildings. And when I say inspected, not just visually looked at the buildings, but actually gone in every apartment, written up a corrective report, and given it to the property owners. So it's a very comprehensive inspection. They've completed 2 of those buildings. They started a 3rd one today. So far, we're getting cooperation. Those buildings are owned by Washington Mutual, and so far we're getting a lot of cooperation from them in terms of giving us access. So just wanted to give you some feedback that so far that comprehensive inspection program is off to a very good start.
Great news.
I have a question. Do you have any sense how the citizens around these buildings are responding to this?
Yes, ma'am. In fact, I met with the neighborhood, what we call our neighborhood services team today. They are getting a very warm response from the tenants. The tenants are very happy to see our people up there, and are very pleased to see us undertaking this intensive inspection program.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. That's all I have, Mayor.
Yeah, I bet they are. Ms. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. As I did send an email to everyone on council yesterday, but for those of you who don't have access to the email, we did get a decision on the Barber v. Ritter case. Essentially, the holding is that the Supreme Court found that the transfer of the money from the special cash funds to the general tax fund did not constitute a violation of Tabor, and the transfer further did not transform the fee into a tax. So I will give you a memo in the next couple of weeks in a little more detail explaining how that affects our issues with the water fund and outlining some of the options. The other thing I have is that I have advertised the part-time city attorney position. I believe it closes tomorrow. We're anticipating doing interviews on November the 11th at 2:30. The position is probably going to be mostly for human resources issues, police and fire, so I put together an interview panel including the chiefs of fire, police, our HR manager, and then I didn't know if anyone on council might be interested in being on a selection panel, but if so, please.
John, were you scratching your head or volunteering?
Both.
Both? Okay.
Yeah, I'll serve on.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Is that it?
That's it. Thank you.
Jose?
Yes, I spoke with the director of Interfaith yesterday, and the shelves are bare down at Interfaith, and they would certainly appreciate any foodstuffs that could be made available. We have a place to bring food at City Hall, Museum, Library, and one other place. But is there 4 of them here? 4 drop-offs? 3.
3.
Yeah. So we do have those drop-offs in the city facilities. So anybody out there that would like to bring some foodstuffs in, she said there's a lot of food coming in, but it's going out as fast as it's coming in. So they certainly could use some additional.
Will we have an article or a plug on that in our next Littleton report?
Well, that's kind of complicated, and you wouldn't think it would be, but it is, because we have to be very careful about limiting the information in the Littleton report just to City of Littleton activities, because if we open it up to interfaith, then we kind of are obligated to open it up to every not-for-profit group out there, and there are many, many worthwhile causes, but if we ended up getting overwhelmed with requests by the Red Cross and all the other good causes in the community. And we can do stuff like that in our employee newsletter, but we have to keep the Littleton report pretty strictly just city stuff.
So let me ask a related question then. How do we decide who gets to put a barrel in the 3 places that we are now collecting stuff?
Well, I'm not sure who made that decision.
You did.
We were approached by Interfaith to help participate in what you had talked about over a number of years. We've been doing this since I got here in 2000. So we partner with them. They're also on your list of people that you donate to as contributions.
Service contract with.
Service contract with. And so we've always had a relationship with them.
So,
Well, there's actually no hard, fast policy, Dr. Cole. I think what staff is telling you, this has been a soft policy. We kind of play it by ear. Interfaith has been, recipient of a service contract for probably 25 years, and so we try to help out. It's really kind of a common sense, case-by-case basis. That's the best we can give you tonight. There is not a hard, fast, written policy on these things.
Well, that's okay. It just seems to me if we're
right. I think
we're doing the one, it seems to me that it's okay to do another,
right,
as opposed to people sort of stumbling on these things when they show up at City Center and the library and the museum.
Yeah. I think, again, because usually there's been issues over the years, as Kelly said, when you're spending money and you're sending out 22,000 copies of the Littleton Report, we're probably more careful than when we do something. We've had other solicitations in this building, recycling of cell phones for somebody or other. Probably the most effective tool you had is just the bully pulpit, just like Councilman Trujillo. Certainly any of you have an opportunity while we're on TV to speak up in favor of a particular need in the community.
Okay.
We're a little bit more careful when there's a direct expenditure of taxpayer funds, such as with the Littleton Report.
Okay.
Jose, anything else?
No, that's it.
Deb?
I have no report.
John?
Nothing this evening.
Tom?
A week from today, at the 11th hour of the 11th day in the 11th month, the Veterans Day celebration will start at our Littleton's very own World War II Memorial by the Historical Museum. And there will be the Littleton United Methodist Church Choir will be there. And, of course, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 4666, and American Legion Post 103. And we should have a flyover. And I hope everybody can attend that next Tuesday. And last night I attended the Littleton Historical Museum board meeting, and what they got going for November is Tom Knoll and Amy Zimmer discussed their book, Showtime, Denver's Performing Arts Convention Centers and Theater District on November 10th. It will be that was November 5th. On November 10th, will be Presidential Hopefuls exhibits will close, which you should get over there and see that. And on November 11th, they'll have a brown bag lecture with Pat Kinning, presenting My Life in France by Julia Child. And in October, 64 groups visited the museum, bringing 3,491 people. And monthly visitation was 38,356, down from 39,305 in 2007. And for the year, total attendance is 116,558, down from 118,202 in 2007. But the all-time attendance records of 131,809 was set in 2007. That's all I've got.
Jim?
Yes, it's interesting that we talked about Interfaith because December 14th, I'm going to have one of my Christmas parties. It's going to be a fundraiser for Interfaith, and I'll get invites out to everybody. I'd like to get the word spread as far as I can because it is raising money for, I think, a very worthy cause. And
all those lights again.
the key is I already have over 200 trees set up in my house getting prepared for this for the 14th. And I'll have over 300 by the time it gets around to that date. So you can come count all you want. If you count ornament-shaped trees, there'll be close to 600 of them there. South Suburban Park Foundation had our meeting last week, and we put money in our budget next year for building a bridge to get either to Littleton High School, or that's probably where it's going to go. We put in $100,000 in the budget. $100,000 may not cover that bridge. It has to go through there, but they'll see. They are putting in some bridge abutments and found out that what they were getting ready to put into bridge abutments was not dirt, it was backfill. So therefore they had to spend about $50,000, $60,000 extra to just put in bridge abutments for one of the bridges they were already scheduled to build. So when we say that it was fully funded, as it was reported to us, it was at the time that the plans were made, but once the get started into this, things change. So, and I'm going to give you tonight a copy of the. You don't get the newsletter, do you, from the foundation? I don't know who gets it. So I brought a copy for each of you, and I'll leave the rest with Kelly to put out in the front for citizens if they'd like to have that. And that's my report.
Dr. Cole.
I have just one thing. Since the videos of special meetings that are held in the community room do not and cannot show all members raising their hands when they vote, when we take votes in special meetings, I request that the city manager announce the members' individual votes and orally announce the tallies of ayes and nays so that people watching the videos know what the tally is and who voted how. I stumbled on this when I was looking at some of the videos for the minutes for today. So, and nobody's to be faulted. It's just something I think we need to have in the sound portion since the video can't show that. So the city manager would do what he does now here in these meetings.
Anything else?
Jim's wondering if that's okay.
If council desires that, we can sure do it.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
It just clarifies things.
All right.
Any objections? Okay.
And I would like to celebrate Election Day. However it turns out, I want to thank everybody who participated in any part of the process and everybody who exercised their right to vote. You're all out there, some of you are here, but I want to celebrate that.
Including those that were out in the parking lot collecting ballots. Anything else?
Thank you.
Interface Task Force shelves are bare. They need food donations. You can make them in any one of 3 barrels at the city. Repetition is the key to retention. Dr. Cog report.
Yes, starting tomorrow evening, we'll start the 2008 plan amendments, it's 2008 plan amendments for MetroVision that'll go into effect in 2009. And it will also be our first vote on the process to evaluate toll roads. It will be a long meeting. That's it.
Anything else? Any other business to come before us? We are adjourned at 7:55.